This conference will now be recorded.
Well, this is Sarah Weiss from the Washington Student Achievement Council. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning as a follow-up to the Financial Aid Train the Trainer workshops earlier this year. We know that things are very different every day, and we really appreciate everyone's time and commitment to this work in the ever-changing times that we're all kind of navigating now. It's so exciting to see so many folks on here, and those that we can see all the neat spaces that you're working in right now. And so I'm going to try technology here and share my screen. Should be able to see a PowerPoint. Can I get a thumbs up? Excellent, wonderful. I'm going to just check in with folks on that thumbs up every once in a while, just to make sure we're moving forward. So welcome again today. What we're going to do is just run over a couple initial thoughts to share with folks, and then we are going to hear from 3 colleges about the work that they've organized and are doing, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. Sound like a good plan, everybody? Great, see some nods, wonderful. All right, Becky.
Good morning, everybody. I'm also going to look for the thumbs up if you, hopefully my audio is also doing all right. Yes? Good. Okay, well, as Sarah said, welcome to you all, especially joining us during these challenging, uncertain, and unique times. I wasn't really able to meet you all when the Train the Trainer workshops were happening. So I'm Becky Thompson. I serve in the role of Director of Student Financial Assistance with the Washington Student Achievement Council, and I'm just thrilled to be able to join you all today. I wanted to just make some quick, brief, overarching remarks here, or some remarks just about the current environment and the purpose of today's meeting. So, you know, it really is to build on the training that took place that you all participated in. And it's really exciting to be able to hear some real examples of what's happening out there with some colleges. So that's really what it's about today. But I do also want to say that we might not have necessarily, or the work may need to be adjusted. We may need to think about how it might change or how it might look a little different than we might have envisioned it a month ago or even a week ago in this changing environment. But one of the things that we wanted to share from the Washington Student Achievement Council is that we do know, based on very recent engagement with prospective students, that there is still a need, absolutely a need for the financial aid process to be supported right now. And we know that through a couple different mechanisms. One is through our texting campaign that we're doing and sort of the inbound messages there, as well as some of the advertising that we're doing, promotion that we're doing in partnership. And we know that that's driving traffic to our website related to our financial aid campaign. So we know that the interest and the support continues to be needed. In terms of really your role and your commitment to those work, it's very much connected to an overall state initiative called Aim Higher Washington that we mentioned during the training. And, you know, we have just this unique opportunity right now in which the state made a historic investment in state financial aid, making the Washington College Grant guaranteed funding for eligible students starting this summer. And some investment in terms of promotion and support when it comes to financial aid application. So that's what we're building on. The initiative really has many different component parts to it. You play an important role in that. And there's other components like the 12th year campaign, outreach, digital tools, and partnerships with new partners as well. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over back to Sarah.
Great, thanks, Becky, for that overview. So one thing that I wanted to share out with folks that's relatively new is a financial aid completion dashboard. I don't know if everyone has seen this. It was kind of launched just as the workshops were happening. I'm going to try, we're going to all cross our collective fingers here for some technology and jump over to that website. Excellent. And so this website right here can show you essentially where FAFSA completion status is for the state. I'm getting some kind of unusual here line, so apologies for that. But over in this purple box, the resources box, you'll be able to see a detailed dashboard, get over to district comparisons, dive into additional details. On the bottom here, there is a statewide map where you can get a sense of where the districts around the state are. And so as you look at your service areas and get a sense of what efforts are going on, this can hopefully be a helpful resource. So I just wanted to point that out for everybody. Perfect. And now we're going to get into the really exciting components of this presentation and webinar, where we hear from those of you who have been doing some really neat work to share some of those best practices and the things that you've been doing on your campuses. And so we have 3 campuses who are on the line today who are going to share kind of what they've been doing: Edmonds Community College, Green River College, and North Seattle College. And we're going to start with Edmonds. So Christina, are you on the line? You are, maybe you're muted. I thought I saw you come on. Christina, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
You can. Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Great. Just had
some. So what's Edmonds been doing?
So we started out with 11 people who we brought in to do the train the trainer. And out of those 11 people, they were represented very broadly across the campus. 3 were in student services. The rest were outside student services. After we went to the training, we came together and developed a work plan. And I think that's, are you showing the work plan?
No, I don't have it up right now, not in the PowerPoint, but we will email it out after with the follow-up.
Okay, so we created a work plan. So the 11 of us got together and started strategizing on how we would roll it out. So the first thing we did was developed and compiled outreach materials that we gave to each of the trainers. And the second thing we did was developed a certificate that we then gave each of the trainers that they could show that they've been trained in filling out the FAFSA, WASFA. Then we decided to start with doing internal trainings first. So we then identified those key areas on campus where people who were trained would go to staff meetings. So some of those areas included TRIO and disability services and our worker retraining area, welcome center area, high school GED. That's just a sampling. So each of them identified a staff meeting they would go to. And then we plan to offer some FAFSA WASFA 101 sessions campus-wide. So we are planning on 3 campus sessions. And then the coronavirus hit, and so that's on pause right now. But we hope to pick that up again soon. And then the final phase of our plan was we identified strategic community partners, and each of our 11 members identified a community partner that they would reach out to see if they have somebody who would like to be trained. And so, you know, we look strategically where are our community of color populations and organizations that support them. We looked at libraries, churches, places of worship, health centers, veterans groups, those types of agencies and organizations. So, you know, we were on a great roll, and then the coronavirus hit, and it has kind of paused some of that work.
Thank you, Christina. Have you been able to continue any of the outreach or connections with students since the coronavirus outbreak?
You mean the, you know, we do communicate with students. We have a CRM product for prospective students, and so we're pushing out messages that way to prospective students about filling out the FAFSA, WASFA. And we did have a staff member who was running weekly FAFSA, WASFA workshops on campus, but that has paused as well.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, Christina. We'll have time for questions at the end in the chat feature. So we're going to move on to Green River College. Teresa.
All right, I'm here. So at Green River, we had started earlier in the year a task force in conjunction with Auburn School District and community partners. So we implemented pieces of what we learned at the FAFSA or the FAFSA WASFA training into that, and then we brought that forward. So that is what I'll be presenting today. If you want to go to the next slide. And click one more time. So we determined as a task force that the best thing for kind of delineating who can help what students and what kind of training we needed, that we wanted 3 levels of training, and that those levels of training would have defined levels of support that a student could expect from them. You can go to the next slide. So we came up with 3 names because we want to be Green River going northwest. So we have trail guides, navigators, and experts. And then we sat in a room with our community members and school district people to find out what they think they would provide at these different levels. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And click one more time. Actually, you have to click 5 more times. So thank you for being my secretary.
Of course.
So we determined that trail guides were level 1, and that they would have information about where to get started. If a student was like, I don't know what to do, they would know this is where you apply for financial aid. This is kind of your first couple steps. It's very relationship based, and we were imagining some community-based partners, churches, maybe just people in the community would be at this level. They know some basics of signs to watch for. So, you know, like these are common things that people have problems with when they do the FAFSA or the WASFA. They also advise against those general hazards, but they don't necessarily join the student on the journey. They're just getting them started. Next slide. And the next group is the Navigator level, and there's a couple. Thank you. So these ones have trail guide experience, so they know how to get students started, but they also are those people that are going to walk alongside of a student to actually work through the application. They also help you keep going if you fall off the bandwagon, get you back to wherever it was that you left off and continue forward. And they also have direct contact to experts, so they can call them in. One of my staff members said they know how they have the satellite phone and can call in the helicopter from the experts when needed. They also support the trail guides. So trail guides, if they have a student that needs somebody to sit with them, they would have connections to navigators. Say, well, you know, I'm not going to be able to help you with that, but I can give you a name of somebody who's willing to do that. And then the last one for the next slide is the financial aid expert. And this this group is typically your financial aid staff. It could be also community partners that this is part of their mission. So a lot of people that work in the school districts do this also. They have vast trail guide and navigator experience. They help find the lost and confused. They can guide students to that next checkpoint, and sometimes putting them back with the navigator once that initial piece has been resolved. But they also can finish it with a student, so they can really help a student at any stage. And they are called to support the trail guides and the navigators. Next slide. So we went to the task force with what these groups thought they would need to be trained on at these different levels. Some of them were already at the levels and some weren't, so it was a really good feedback. If you go to the next slide, I can show you kind of some basics of what we determined from that meeting. So teaching the why, general financial aid vocabulary, Washington College grant expansion, confidentiality, how to get your FSA ID, the difference between WASFA and FAFSA and what the best practices are around that, and how to connect with the navigators and experts, common pitfalls. The next slide has our navigator training. So a navigator, how we planned our training is that 1 hour is going to be for trail guides, and then they can leave and they'll get a little certificate, and we're hoping like a little badge or something. And then the navigators would stay for hour 2, so it would build on the trail guide experience. Those ones are navigator norms, why we're in it, so kind of building on the why. We'll go through a step-by-step FAFSA, talk some basics about verification and taxes, some common scenarios, and then a deeper dive into FAFSA and WASFA and kind of the trickier places, especially around residency and parents' residency. And then we planned a group activity where we would have in groups them work on the FAFSA demo site, but we would give them a scenario with some common pitfalls of students so that they could work through those trickier scenarios, and we could talk through it at the end. And then the last piece we did on the next slide is I asked the group, where do we fit in? Where do you find yourself? Are you a trail guide? Are you a navigator? And are you an expert? And then on the next slide, and I thought this was very, very helpful, we got a lot of leads of who's missing from here. Who do you think needs to be a trail guide that is not in this room? Who do you think needs to be a navigator? And so we got a lot of really good leads on kind of thinking outside the box. And then the last slide is our basic training plan. So we are rolling out now live from our living rooms, trainings in our beta, which is departments that we already work really closely with. So TRIO and MESA, Workforce, Advising, and Running START. We're going to do it for their teams to get the information to all of them, but also to get really good feedback since a lot of them have the information already. Then we will do in probably later April, round 1, which would be all of student affairs, the library branch locations, and our full task force. And then probably in May, we would be doing more of the trainings in the school districts and out in the community. Hopefully, we will be free from our houses by then. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And I have a question real quick here, specific from Laura to Green River. So since we're on you right now, I'm going to bring it up. But the question was it mainly financial aid staff who were spearheading this amazing initiative?
I would say yes, although we did have a lot of buy-in from advising, workforce, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. They all were at our training. But this has been for the last 2 years my thing. So I took it on. But I think anyone could do it. But I think you at least need the buy-in from the financial aid department to be able to be those experts in it. And another piece is our training plan. The 3 people that were trained outside of the financial aid office, they all are willing to do these trainings, but they want a financial aid person with them the first couple times till they get that level of comfort. So I think that will allow us to really build and have a lot more trainers out there. But I think it takes a little bit of just kind of co-leading for a bit until everyone feels comfortable.
Great. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So moving on to Brianne at Seattle College of North Seattle.
All right.
You're on the line. Perfect.
So our Seattle Colleges is a 3-college district, for those that don't know. I represent North Seattle College, but we are the 3 colleges together. South Seattle and Seattle Central are all working on this initiative together. So go ahead, next slide. And we've broken it out into 3 phases of action to chunk it out and make it manageable for the groups. So we've been doing trying to work with some of our closest units, so workforce education, advising, and our basic and transitional studies for several years. And so when WASAC did the Train the Trainer workshop, we were happy to invite a broader audience. So we had a couple workforce education navigators. We had a navigator from our Opportunity Center, which is the building that houses DSHS, WorkSource, and a couple dozen community-based organizations. And we also had several participants from our Seattle Promise group, which is the scholarship program for graduates of Seattle Public Schools. And their outreach team, they have staff in each of the 17 high schools, several hours a day, a couple times a week. And then, of course, we had financial aid specialists that attended the Train the Trainer workshop. On campus, we are also doing campus level workshops. So we work very closely with our workforce education office, and we're doing once or twice a month workshops for all of the workforce education students to help them complete FAFSA WASFA. And we do a follow-up workshop for students that are selected for verification or have tricky citizenship questions and need more one-on-one interaction, and we help them through that process. And we do in our ESL and ABE, we do sort of transition fairs is what we call them, but once a quarter we'll do 2 workshops for the, at our college it's level 6 ESL and the high level adult basic ed classes, as well as our high school 21 programs. So we do 2 workshops. We generally do 1 workshop to introduce financial aid, what it is, what it means, what the process is. And we a lot of times will have students in that first workshop set up their FSA ID and their email to complete the WASFA. And then the second workshop, they will actually bring their tax documents and complete the FAFSA or the WASFA in their classroom. They get credit for it in the classroom, and then they obviously get the added benefit of having it done in their normal day. So next slide, please. So we've identified some work that we are currently doing that we need to either do better or expand upon, and then some new initiatives. So that's in part of our phase 2. So we're expanding on our current workshops and outreach events that I had just mentioned. We are also, through the Seattle Promise program, we are also doing 2 to 3 workshops at each high school, essentially in the fall quarter. And then for students that elect to join the Seattle Promise program in January, February, we are doing optional workshops to actually complete the financial aid file. So in addition to filing, we're collecting that tax document, getting citizenship information, and we have found it really powerful to invite the parents to those events so that parents can be part of the process, and it really helps our office, but it helps the student as well. And we have about 20 different community-based organizations that do anywhere from 1 day a week to 5 days a week in our Opportunity Center. And we are getting that list together to be intentional on who can help support this initiative for those community-based organizations. And we are also laying out the plans to continue to work with our benefits hub. At least for North Seattle College, we're in our first year of a benefits hub program. And this year we focused on financial aid completion workshops and then related financial literacy workshops. And we provide training to the 3 benefits hub coaches, and also some of their workshops we're inviting students to. Next slide. And so the third phase will eventually, the goal is to get all 20 of our partners that are in the Opportunity Center on board, even if it just means that they're advertising workshops to their clients to help them complete that process. We are also planning to coordinate with our offsite early childhood education programs and other co-op programs to go to the location that these students and clients are and do these events on site. We currently are also doing some programs with Seattle Housing Authority, and we're doing workshops on site at the complexes there. And then the coordination with other funding servicers, so unions and other nonprofits, to do on-site workshops for their employees to help teach them and help them be comfortable with helping other students or clients fill out the FAFSA-WASFA application. I think I have one more slide. So what we are doing, what we're dedicating to each of these phases in the group, specifically from the financial aid office, is we're going to help with the training of the facilitators. We will provide on-site assistance for workshops as needed. Our goal is that we'll do it 1 or 2 workshops until that facilitator is comfortable, and then not have to be there on site for all of their workshops. But then to offer a direct point person, 1 single point person per agency or per couple agencies that can truly help with those complex questions and or directly take referrals from their prospective students to assist them so that students aren't getting lost sort of in the process of the next steps. And then the commitment of personalized assistance for specialized groups. Some of the specialized groups that we've identified are students that have applied through emergency assistance, our partners through the Seattle Housing Authority, and then our partners that are committed to us, the DVR, Department of Vocational Rehab, for their students as well. And we've worked with a couple of the local Seattle Public Libraries through their high school engagement programs that they're offering, and provide some very specific and specialized one-on-one assistance to their students. It's not in the slide, but what we are doing because of this outbreak is we are planning to do a series of 3 workshops or 3 webinars for students. One would be for students who have already completed the application, and it's just a series of next steps that they'll need to do to complete the process or to enroll in college. The second workshop will be for students that have at least started and or have completed, but they've got complex citizenship or verification questions, and so we're hoping to offer that through an online process. And then the third workshop will be for the students that just have not started. So we'll essentially start from the beginning and go over FSA ID, make sure students are having email addresses to complete the WASFA, and then walk them through that process. So we're hoping to do a series of mini webinars or mini trainings that can be posted on our website or emailed to groups. But then we're also hoping to somehow integrate a live Zoom setting of sorts to offer, to simulate sort of one of our orientations that we would do for students in a live environment. And that is all we have for the Seattle colleges.
Great, thank you so much. Reading from some of the comments, it sounds like LCC is also doing some Zoom, offering some drop-in sessions for financial aid registration. Green River is doing Zoom. That's really exciting to hear. So many folks are utilizing all of the technology that's available. I feel like everybody's probably being zoomed out at this point, but working through all of the technology and finding ways to still connect with students. Brianne, there was a question for you about how has enrollment been in the workshops that you had. At Shoreline, they said that they typically do weekly workshops with financial aid staff, but they've historically been underattended.
Yeah, so we were doing weekly workshops as well, and we would have very few students. We started doing targeted workshops for targeting specific groups and inviting that group. So our ESL groups, our workforce education groups, and we do them. We've now shifted, so we're not running them every week. We're running them right before registration or right before an orientation. So we're also trying to cluster it with other events that are happening on campus where we know students will be attending or participating. We did one timed at the same day as like our transfer fair. So we're clustering it with other activities to build up some of that attendance, because we did have a similar problem. We had actually stopped doing orientations, financial aid orientations, for about 6 months to kind of retool it and figure out what might work for us.
At Green River, we also have had very little success with just offering a workshop as just a drop-in piece. We've done a couple things. We've been really trying to target our Running Start population. And so we had kind of a pop-up in their registration waiting area. So while they were bored and waiting, one of my staff was in there being like, well, here's a computer. How about you start your FAFSA? And he had a hit list of people that he could outreach to, and also doing more of that person by person outreach instead of just the blanket, hey, we noticed you haven't done a FAFSA yet, but actually texting or calling or emailing saying, hey, student, this is what I can help you with. What barriers are you running across, and then walking through that with them. So that we've seen a lot more success, but we're still trying to figure out how to move that out to our general population to do renewals of how do we do that effectively, because we don't have the same tools as the high school seniors and their FAFSA completion.
Great, thank you. Becky, do you want to share some of these resources before we get to some of the Q&A?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Gosh, just thank you so much, Christina, Brianne, and Teresa, for your leadership and for sharing really inspiring ideas. So just a few quick notes about some of the resources that the Student Achievement Council has available for you all, or for those partners that you might work with, starting with the Washington College Grant Toolkit. And so, again, these slides are going to be shared after the workshop or after the webinar. But if you go to the Washington College Grant site, you'll see in some ways how we're talking about Washington College Grant for students. If you scroll down the page and over kind of to the right in the resource section, you'll see a toolkit. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. It looks, you can find some messaging that we're providing about Washington College Grant and some other ideas about how to promote it. guessing many of you are familiar with 12th year campaign materials, and so we're mentioning that. Hopefully you all are familiar now with our OtterBot texting tool that we introduced to college-bound seniors in high school this year, and we have some expansion in terms of who is using that. Actually, if you go to that site, you can see how students, our prospective students, can get signed up for that. And we continue to send out messages outbound, and then individuals can then interact with that AI technology, in which we have a database to help answer some of the questions that might get texted in to our office. College and Career Compass Washington. This is an initiative we've been working on for a very long time at the Student Achievement Council, and happy to have a launching of this online tool. It was originally designed, and you'll see a lot of language on it right now, for adults that might be looking to re-enter into post-secondary. It has a way for them to explore different career opportunities and programs. This is one of the areas where we're right now looking at how quickly we can be responsive and change some of this, or add to it, where we also can speak to potentially a high school audience, because what we're realizing in our current environment is that we at the Student Achievement Council may need to think about how we're reaching out to students directly, and the online tools that might be available to them. So those are just a few ideas. So I'll hand it back to Sarah, who's, I think, gonna moderate some of the questions, and already some great questions. So go ahead, Sarah.
Great, thanks, Becky. And so the first question we have here is for just the presenters, and if they'd be willing to be contacted by attendees outside of the webinar. I saw a couple thumbs up. Yep, so that's great. And a yes in the chat from Christina. Wonderful. Thank you all so much for being so gracious with your time in this effort. So if you do have a question, please write it in the chat function. And as we've kind of been doing, I'll share it out, and we can get some of those questions answered. Not seeing any, but I want to give it a minute in case we've got some. There we go. I just needed to say something. Okay, so this question is, we're wanting to provide a handout for next steps, FAFSA, WASA, apply to college, follow-up, etc. Has anyone created one that we could borrow? Well, Teresa, since I'm talking right now, I'll share that we do have one with the 12th year campaign. We have a next steps postcard. And so on that 12th year campaign website, you can go sign up as a site and then request those to be mailed to you. And we are still able to ship them right now. Or if you wanted to just email me, Sarah, directly, I can send you the PDF of it. I'm wondering if anyone else has one. I'll keep an eye out in the chat. These slides will be emailed out, yes, in addition to a recording. And Emily Rodriguez says she has created one as well. Emily, where are we able to find that? She says she can email it to Brianne. And also maybe Teresa, who was asking the question. Great. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we've got a question for Green River. Who was identified in your who's missing piece? Other staff members, or did it extend beyond that?
No, it did extend beyond that. The school district had a lot of input of that, of their contacts both within the high schools and also their community-based organizations that they work with. And I'm trying to remember some of them. We thought a YMCA was one, especially the YMCA typically has like a youth planner. I don't know what they're called, but that person. Boys and girls clubs, churches, especially like pastors or youth pastors, and families. The PTA. Am I missing anything, Sean and Beth?
Well, we had like neighborhood house was one that had come up. Treehouse. Again, more community use focused organizations that we either hadn't thought of or hadn't worked with before.
Shelters, temporary housing options, anywhere that kids are going to be a lot, basically.
Great, thank you. Next question is for all the colleges that presented today. Do you have dedicated staff that were hired to focus on this work? Okay, Green River, do you want to start?
Sure. That's a tricky question to answer. So far, no. But we have had approved an outreach position specifically to work with our high schools that finally got approved, and we offered a position and they start next month, hopefully, if nothing changes. But so far, we've been doing everything with current staffing.
How about Edmond?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you have dedicated staff that were hired to focus on this work?
No, we do not have dedicated staff. We ask for volunteers across the campus, and it's just part of their current job load.
And North Seattle, Brianne?
We have been operating with just current staff. We developed a position which is in the queue. It's uncertain at this point in time if we'll actually be able to hire, depending on sort of what happens with the coronavirus outbreak and staffing and funding, etc. But there was a recognized need on campus for a dedicated person, so we developed a position. So whether we're able to do it now or a little bit later, I imagine we will have a dedicated person that chairs and champions this sort of work across the district.
Thank you all. Another note in the chat here is that WSU Vancouver, back to the previous question, has a presentation, a next steps presentation that they're doing for seniors, and there's also even interest from teachers to present to juniors as well. And so that's from Kimberly McDougall, and so perhaps if you're interested in the next steps piece, reaching out to WSU Vancouver as another resource as well. And yes, just another reminder that I will email this presentation, which will include the information from the colleges as well as the Edmund work plan and a recording of this webinar. For the colleges that presented, I'm seeing a lot of comments here, great information, very impressed, so thanks so much. Just want to be sure to share that out. Any other questions for folks? Okay.
Well, thanks,
With
Sarah.
that, yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. I just want to wrap up by really, I mean, I don't know, virtually we'll do, you know, thank you so much to our presenters for really sharing their great work. I want to really thank you all on behalf of this AIM Higher Washington work for your work supporting students. That was true before our current environment with COVID-19 and especially now in these unprecedented times. I know that I have just seen colleges serving students in just innovative, inspiring ways. And so thank you for your continued commitment to students and this work. We will continue to be in touch, and we hope that you do the same as you try new things to be able to share with this group what works well and what might you need additional support on. So thanks so much again for your time today, everyone, and thanks to the presenters.
Thank you so much. And again, this will be emailed out shortly, along with the recording and work plan, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sarah, I just want to thank you and Becky and WASAC for your leadership too. Thank you. Great job.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.